Thank you, John, for your formal introduction. And hi, everyone. Thank you, John and Henry Brady, for inviting me to the celebration of CSHE's 60th anniversary. It is my great pleasure and honor to be here at UC Berkeley. Academic freedom and value protection conundrums. How global engagements of universities and colleges foster an ongoing debate. Our focus today is on ongoing debates on academic freedom in the East, Asia, and the Middle East, and value protection in higher education institutions of the West, Northern America, Canada, and Western Europe. These debates appear to be fostered by higher education reforms in the world and globalization ventures of the higher education institutions of the West. Western higher education institutions have been expanding their operations in other countries extensively over the past 3 decades through various initiatives, ranging from simple student and faculty exchange to the establishment of full-fledged branch campuses. On the one hand, many universities have realized that such efforts provide exposure to a global pool of talent, access to local contacts to solve problems of interest beyond their borders, and create fresh revenue streams at a time when budgets for education and research have been in decline. On the other hand, Western higher education institutions have come to enjoy a great deal of academic freedom and can often encounter difficulties in protecting such values when operating in a different environment. Some Western universities and colleges are concerned about risks to their reputation should they engage in joint projects with higher education institutions and governments in other parts of the world. Yet, many have proceeded with various globalization efforts, such as launching new universities, liberal arts colleges, branch campuses, alliances, or research and teaching partnerships. Indeed, there has been ever-increasing momentum for setting up globalization ventures outside Western countries. While higher education institutions have taken many different paths in their globalization efforts, they are unified in acknowledging the need to have a global presence. Several examples highlight the impact of higher education globalization initiatives. Carnegie Mellon University offers degrees in nearly 20 locations across the world, with CMU's top 5 student densities after the US being in China, India, South Korea, Qatar, and Taiwan. Cross-border education research team's database with respect to international campuses as of January 2016 reveals the following data. Number of international branch campuses in operation is 232. Number of exporting countries is 32. Number of importing countries of branch campuses is 76. The largest exporters of branch campuses in order of institutions with branches are from US, UK, Russia, Australia, France. The largest exporters of branch campuses in order of branches, again the US, the lead with 82 branches, UK, Russia, France, Australia, and the largest importers are from United Arab Emirates, China, Singapore, Qatar, Malaysia. Nearly 20 years ago, Qatar Foundation established an education city by inviting world-class universities. The 6 US universities involved and disciplines established in Qatar are Virginia Commonwealth University, Visual Arts School, Georgetown University, School for the Foreign Service, Will Cornell Medical School, Northwestern University Journalism School, Texas A&M Engineering, Carnegie Mellon Business and Computer Science. Further, there are now signs of reversal of the flow of ventures, with the East as home institution and the West as host. The following are some examples which are likely to increase in number over time. NYU Shanghai Research Center for Global Asia, collaborating not only with NYU, but other research centers across the world. NUS National University of Singapore has established NUS Overseas College in Germany. The China-Europe International Business School, CSHE, based in Shanghai, also has a campus in Zurich and has established programs in Africa. Let's adopt geographical locations in addressing globalization ventures: home institution, host country. Then we have the following at the moment: West Asia, West the Middle East, East Africa, East the Middle East, West, and most recently, East-West. We are limiting our discussion to West Asia and West the Middle East. Why, how, where, when, any concerns, benefits, sustainability, road to success stories have been our starting points. Questions raised by mainly the faculty include to what extent any kinds of global engagement decisions have been institutional. Some examples of the West Asia, West the Middle East, NYU US, Paris Sorbonne, and INSEAD France in Abu Dhabi, MIT, Yale, Georgia Tech US, and INSEAD France in Singapore, NYU US, University of Nottingham UK in China, the 6 US universities mentioned before in Qatar, University College London UK, University of Calgary Canada in Qatar, and University of Nottingham UK in Malaysia. Why this interest of the West in the East and vice versa? Since late 20th century, 1960s onwards, Asia countries recognized educated workforce as a means of economic growth and emphasized research input for innovation and competitiveness. 21st century, in the beginning, Asia countries' agenda includes even more ambitious goals to expand the capacity of their higher education systems, to create a number of world-class universities, flagship universities, liberal arts colleges, to become a research and technology hub, and turn research into commercial startups. The impact of Asia leading nations in 21st century higher education and research derive from the scale and rapidity of growth, demographics, and timing. 1/3 of the world population is in the Asia Pacific. In the Persian Gulf, on the other hand, say Doha, Qatar, late 20th century, goals were to create a knowledge-based society, establish cultural change, and advance equal educational opportunities between genders, using their wealth and establishing the education city. Higher education institutions and higher education authorities of the West, therefore, have naturally been watching the emerging higher education activities of Asia and the Middle East, their higher education systems and approaches. Asia and the Middle East are perceived as both competitors as well as highly promising sources of current and future collaborations. In the case of Singapore, for example, several committees of the Singapore Ministry of Education worked on well-defined themes considered vital for Singapore's economy. The results recommendations were given to the Singapore Ministry of Education. One of them was the establishment of a small private institution of the highest quality along the lines of small liberal arts colleges as in the US. NUS President Tan and Yale President Levin met at the World Economic Forum in the Swiss village of Davos and initiated the possible establishment of a liberal arts college in Singapore. 2009, negotiations started. 2011, the college was established. Levin and Tan saw an opportunity for the established universities to possibly reflect together on what a 21st century liberal arts education, a redesigned liberal arts education for Asia and the world, could add to global higher education. For the first time since 1701, Yale was having 2 representations, Yale New Haven and Yale Singapore. Both Yale and NUS introduced the Yale NUS College as one of the landmarks in their respective history. Yale NUS College, NYU Abu Dhabi, both liberal arts colleges, are considered similar to the new University Amsterdam University College, but Yale NUS and NYU Abu Dhabi are considered as reflective of more geographically diverse currents of thought, resources, ideologies, and institutional impulses. SUTD, on the other hand, Singapore University of Technology and Design, established by MIT, is a school of engineering and architecture, not a liberal arts college. Still, first 1.5 years of the education is a common curriculum reflecting the liberal arts culture. Other efforts in Singapore, many more efforts exist. Again, well-defined goals for the Singapore economy. One of the sample activity is the Singapore-Stanford Biodesign Program. All efforts in Singapore are sustained with continued commitment of the Singapore government. U.S. Higher Education Act, Section 117 on disclosure of foreign gifts states the following. Whenever any institution receives a gift from or enters into a contract with a foreign source, the value of which is $250,000 or more within a calendar year, the institution shall file a disclosure report with the Secretary on January 31st or July 31st, whichever is sooner. Qatari government expenditure per student in US dollars is in 6 figures. Will Cornell receives the highest chunk, $459,245, and the education city average of the 6 universities is $205,065. So the West gets free buildings, six-figure per student incomes, Persian Gulf, the right to be associated with the prestige of the higher education institutions of the West and to educate their students in situ. Qatari royal family pays the six schools also operation and management fees, just under $405 million per annum to operate the Doha campus. Total number of students, only 2,000. There are, however, concerns. These are centered around academic freedom and protection of hard-earned values of the home institutions in the US, the UK, Canada, and EU. For example, liberal arts education standards, American academic tradition in which faculty members are partners in projecting a university's progression and paths. Some saw the leadership in the US with a vision to expand their university internationally while maintaining its reputation for excellence and academic freedom. As the very model of a modern university president, as a hero who has transformed the university. Some said higher education is under great strain in the US, so the temptation to raise money by expanding into rapidly growing or resource-rich countries is considered understandable. A few examples of concerns and controversies, though. NYU president experienced a no-confidence vote by the Arts and Science faculty. There was controversy over a standalone campus in NYU Abu Dhabi. Similarly, Yale president experienced a non-binding faculty resolution in 2012. The resolution expressed reservations about Yale creating a new undergraduate college, Yale and US, in a joint venture with the National University of Singapore. AIUP also warned Yale. Faculty members at the Claremont colleges in California, a consortium including five undergraduate liberal arts colleges and University of Warwick in UK, cited concerns about academic freedom when they declined Singapore's offers to fund liberal arts colleges there before Yale accepted. In China, the first campus jointly run by US and Chinese universities, the Hopkins Nanjing Center, opened in 1986, 30 years ago. Hopkins insisted the center should safeguard academic freedom in the classroom. A more recent contract, 2005, includes academic freedom within HNC. Yale President Levin stated, students would be free to form associations as long as they are not intolerant of racial or religious groups. Yale and US President Pericles Lewis said they would not be free to form explicitly political associations, much less stage protests of government policies, even on campus. Yale promised that the newly hired faculty at Yale and US would rethink liberal education for the 21st century. Kay Kuok, chair of the Yale and US Governing Board, a businesswoman, said, "We must look at liberal in the sense of broad rather than free. It's freedom of thought. I am not necessarily saying freedom of expression." Limits on academic freedom are one reason Stanford University and Columbia University haven't opened campuses in China. Columbia has a study center, Stanford in Peking. Columbia president said centers which provide offices for visiting professors and host lecturers and fundraisers are easily exited. The one thing we have to do is maintain our academic integrity, our academic independence. Stanford president said there are too many examples of a strict and stern control that lead you to think that this is kind of an explosive mix. The center has no protection of academic freedom, and other schools' agreements don't guarantee rights taken for granted in the US. Even the ones you get are so scripted as to not be freedom as we imagine in this country. Other concerns, you will see university presidents and trustees who are defining down their expectations of what a liberal education means, much as corporations do when they look at other way at shoddy labor and environmental practices abroad. The difference, of course, is that a university's mission is to question such arrangements, not to facilitate them. Other dangers, all too smooth and therefore more troubling convergence of Singapore's state-run capitalism and the West's increasingly similar corporate state capitalism. In this supposedly harmonic convergence, people see dangers. 3 points of view. Countries that liberalize economically will also liberalize politically. Farid Zakaria. University and college quality is influenced strongly by the nature, structure, and practices of their governance. The nature, structure, and practices of university and college governance tend to be largely determined by the history and culture of the society in which the institutions reside. By understanding the broader culture and then by focusing on optimizing governance practices relative to that culture, we can optimize quality, whatever the culture. Universities, third view, universities need to recover a more missionary freedom-seeking approach to their host countries pedagogically and even politically, or they should follow the model of Columbia and other universities that have created learning centers with much larger footprints, not full-fledged campuses. A few examples of success, just 2 examples. Executive editor of the Yale Alumni magazine says in his article titled "Adaptation, Can Yale and US Recreate Residential College Life in Tropical High-Rise Towers?" He finishes off his article by saying, "I looked around and I thought this feels like a college, not an experiment." And the second one is a research center, different from the undergraduate, but it's still a success story, Singapore MIT Alliance. The director of SMART says MIT is in Singapore for a long term. We have a stable 5-year funding. We like the model. It works for us. Singapore has the political will to innovate. Massachusetts doesn't allow us to test driverless cars. This is our living testbed. SUTT helps MIT achieve its mission to create knowledge and educate the students to improve the world. When these programs naturally end, we will do others. We have 4 billion Singapore dollars annual budget. SMART has no trouble attracting top research scientists. Thank you.